Welcome to the Father Jim Clark Show. Father Jim Clark Show. Here on Heaven's Road FM. The only place to go for Catholic radio. Be blessed. Be blessed. Be entertained. Be entertained. Be welcome. Be welcome.
Well, welcome back to the show today. I have a special with me again, as I have got two people here with me in the studio who, first of all, I'd like to introduce. It is Declan O'Loughlin. Hello, Declan.
Hello, Father Jim.
And Eileen Doherty. Hello, Eileen.
Hello, Father Jim.
And we also better get a hello from Siobhan, who's Declan's wife in the corner there. Say hello, Siobhan.
Hello.
There you go. Now, today we are asking Eileen and Declan about, they are two members of the Catholic travelling community. Now, some people may have misconceptions about the travelling community, and I have these two here today to kind of ask them a number of questions about what's going on within their community, and it might come as a bit of a surprise, I think, to many of our listeners. So, first question. For those listeners who perhaps aren't familiar with the Gypsy and travelling community here, and indeed, abroad and worldwide, perhaps you can explain a little bit about yourselves and about the common values and cultures and traditions that you share.
Yeah, of course, Father Jim. The Gypsy and the travelling communities, they're a very diverse group. You have Irish travellers, English Gypsies, and then you have the Roma in Europe. Our cultures can be different, and also our languages. Most identify themselves using their main country of origin first, followed by an ethnic group. For example, you've got the Polish Roma or the Irish traveller.
Yeah.
Each group, like any nation, is different and faces different challenges. Myself and Eileen are both Irish travellers, raised in England, but Manchester, England is very much my home and always has been.
Yeah. Okay. What about you, Eileen?
Yeah, the Irish travellers can be traced back as far as, like, the nomads. The English Gypsies can be traced back to India.
Right.
We have different languages, but we've got the same lifestyle on
Right.
the side of the road. So
Yeah. Okay. Now, I was very interested to see that the Pope met with the Gypsies and the travellers of the world last Monday the 26th of October, as part of some sort of official pilgrimage. Now, before you tell me about that, can you tell me, first of all, how did this meeting come about? How is this a first, or has this happened before?
no, it's not the first.
It's not the
One
first.
happened 50 years ago. I think it was Pope Paul VI, I think.
Yeah.
It's an anniversary of the 50 years
Yeah.
for the Gypsies and the travellers, so it's not the first.
Right, so that's interesting. So, tell us about the actual... I'm not quite sure how long you went for, whether it was 3 or 4 days or 5 or 6 days. Tell me about the pilgrimage you had to Rome and when you met the Pope.
We had a 5-day, like a long weekend from Thursday to Monday to meet the Pope. We went visit the holy sites. We done the Way of the Cross with over 11,000 gypsies and travellers took part.
Wow.
Yeah,
That must have been some crowd.
It was
Yeah.
absolutely beautiful. We visited the holy sites. We went to the the martyrs, Colosseum. Sorry,
Oh, yeah.
Colosseum.
Yeah, you went to the Colosseum,
Yeah, and then we had an audience with Pope Francis,
Right.
and we had a special mass as well. Also, the day before that, in a little place just outside of Rome, with the
Right.
travellers and gypsies.
Yeah,
So it was a very, very special time for everyone.
I bet.
Yeah, it gave the
bet.
travellers and gypsies great hope. Thank God.
Yeah. So, the Pope himself now, I mean, he is making an awful splash in the media around the world. People are very, very interested in him.
The Holy Father wants travellers and gypsies to be at the heart of the church. He no longer wants them to be in the outskirts or in the background. He wants them to be active in the church.
And he seems to be interested in lots of people. So obviously he's interested in the gypsies and the travellers now. So what was his message to you? And how do you think this applies to the community here in England especially?
Yeah, the Pope said, he said the time has come to uproot secular prejudice, preconceived ideas and reciprocal dividends that are often at the base of discrimination, racism and xenophobia.
Yeah. He's a good man.
He's a very good man. He's a great man, so he is. God bless him. He talks about a mutual standoffishness on both sides that can lead to discrimination and xenophobia, a dislike or prejudice against other people.
Yeah.
And that's on both sides of the coin. It's not one way.
Absolutely. As is always the case with any racism,
Yeah. But here in England, we need to open lines of communication with non-travellers. Traveller or non-traveller, we all share our churches, schools and the likes. And we have a shared interest in our communities. We need to work together, break down the barriers and start building bridges.
Mm-hmm.
He also urged us to avoid giving the media opportunities to speak badly of gypsies.
Yeah.
He told us to be protagonists of our present and of our future. He said, we can do this if we are good Christians, avoiding all that is not worthy of this name. For example, lies, frauds, swindles, altercations, etc. Basically set an exemplary example of ourselves as Christians. Now, Father Jim, I can tell you from my experience, this can be difficult because, unfortunately, good news doesn't sell newspapers. Programmes like Channel 4's My Big Fat Gypsy Wedding has sensationalised us and taken us travellers out of context.
Yeah, absolutely.
It can be difficult to get the media to cover the good news stories about the travellers that are out there. For example, on Sunday night, a small army of Catholic travellers hit the streets of London with sleeping bags and clothing for the homeless. Now, this went viral on Facebook, but the newspapers didn't want to know. That's another reason we're grateful for this opportunity, to speak with you today, about the issues we feel are important to us Catholic travellers and tell you some of our good news stories. Now, Pope Francis, he also said, children are your most precious treasure, and he pointed that education is at the base of the healthy development of the person. And he's 100% right. Travellers do have low attainment in education, often leaving school early. The time has come for travellers to take up roles of leadership in the community, particularly our own community. The decisions taken about issues like traveller housing and traveller education should be influenced by travellers and not just left up to the state.
Yeah.
Education is a two-way street, and the education system has a role to play as well.
Right.
And I think it needs to teach things that's going to be relevant to traveller children and make it easier for young married women to go to college if that's what they want to do. Now, travellers in England and Ireland are proving themselves to be successful businessmen and women, sports people and community figures, and we need to build on this more. Now, how can we influence society if we don't start taking up positions of influence like politicians and teachers, etc.? What we need is more positive role models for our own children and for the rest of society to see. Like in our Bible study group that we have, there's 2 or 3 men there. There's young Jimmy Delaney, Johnny Casey and Francie Casey. They're going running the marathon in London in April next year for the homeless charity Shelter. So it's more positive things like that what we need to be doing and get seen in a positive light. Yeah.
Okay, well, it seems to me, funnily enough, I was actually brought up with a huge, not within a huge travelling community, but there was a huge travelling community of people that actually went to my primary school. So I must have had, I don't know, there were at least a dozen in my class alone. So I'm very used to kind of the way the travelling community works. But from what you've just said there, actually, there seems to be a swinging almost in your culture there, where you're now standing up for yourself much more.
Absolutely, yes.
You want to be, much more involved in education, much more involved in role modelling to the younger ones, which I think is a fantastic thing. Yeah. And I'm very glad you brought up the My Big Fat Gypsy Wedding. I did think it was an awful thing that Channel 4 did, to isolate that like they did. So just perhaps, you've talked about the change, swinging change in your culture there. So what do you see for the future holding for the Catholic travellers and the gypsies now here in the UK? And what are your plans? Where do you think you can go from here? Where's the way forward?
Okay. Recently, over the last year, there's been several successful initiatives set up by the laity of the travelling community. Some current initiatives being run by travellers are, what I just spoke about. We have a men's online Bible study group where men from all across the country join in and contribute daily at 6 p.m. Via video messages and voice recordings on their mobile phone. We also have a deacon on board, Deacon Andrew, who converted to Catholicism from a born-again Protestant background to help the study along with several other knowledgeable men from within the travelling community. There's also a women's online Bible study group with 100 members, but is listened into by many more. The men's group are providing sleeping bags to the homeless in London, which raised £5,000 from within the travelling community in less than a month. We made our first run last Sunday night, meeting up at Westminster Cathedral with 100 packs containing sleeping bags, hats, gloves, socks, thermals, tops and bottoms. And the Catholic women, they're also in the process of getting the groundwork done to get their own charitable collection off the ground also. There have been prayer meetings for travellers set up on a monthly basis during the summer, which many have travelled to. Eileen can tell you a bit more about that in a few minutes.
Yeah.
There have been Catholic traveller evangelisation groups and masses at gypsy fairs like Kenilworth, etc. We have several social media web pages devoted to sharing our faith and building fellowship within the community. But the travelling community, it's a young population, and our success in engaging the youth can in part be attributed to the use of social media in promoting events and activities.
Yeah.
So because of the nature of the community, everyone's being spread out across the country and frequent changes of address, there is no base in one area. So we have to keep a national network. This is why having an online base where people get their information from and can find online activities to engage in has been so successful. The travelling community themselves, they're tech savvy. Despite having poor literacy skills amongst the older population, this is because video, messaging and voice recordings require very little reading. Now, all these initiatives have been set up and run by travellers, but because the travelling community is spread out across the country, we would like help from the church in taking a more organised approach, such as an official headquarters for the traveller gypsy community with a designated member of the clergy to liaise with.
Nice one.
Now, another thing I'd just like to add to that as well, this is a message I'd like to give to the travelling community and to the settled community as well. I also think it's very, very important for travellers and settled people to go out and get involved within their own communities. Don't sit back and wait for somebody else to do it. As Christians, we need to put our faith into action and live the Gospels, because preaching them isn't enough. So basically, let's practice what we preach. Because we know from scripture, faith without works is dead. Jesus didn't limit himself to preaching. He fed the hungry and he healed the sick. So get out in your own community, ask questions, find out what's going on, and if there's nothing going on, get something going on. Pope Francis says, we are in control of our own future, so let's make our future as bright as we can for ourselves and for the less fortunate.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Because really, that last bit of that message could not just be for the traveller, it could be for everybody, in the church. Of course it is. It's like, we try and get things here in our own parish. Yeah. On a social level, and it's really hard for people to get people to come anymore. Yeah, they're so busy, and it's very interesting to hear you talking there about your youngsters, like many youngsters now who are so tech savvy, so into social media. And I'll tell you something, it's a fantastic thing to hear you talking about this Bible study group that you have, because I think that could be an example really for the rest of the church.
Yeah.
Now, Eileen, I believe that you help run a women's online Bible and Catechism study group, and that you help organise events in the area. Perhaps you might be able to tell us a bit more about the way that runs and how these online studies groups operate, what the kind of numbers that are involved in who are getting involved with them, and maybe does that then lead to offline kind of study groups, and how do they come about?
Yes, I didn't actually start a WhatsApp. A young girl and her mother-in-law, Rose Delaney, started WhatsApp about 3 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. But he contacted me on Facebook and asked me would I join. So I downloaded WhatsApp and I joined, which I'm very glad of. So over 100 women in the last 3 weeks has joined WhatsApp.
Get away!
And a lot of the older community that can't read absolutely love it, because they can hear voice notes and they can reply back as well. Do you know what I mean?
Of course, yeah.
So that's very, very promising for the future of the Catholics, travellers and gypsies.
Right.
And we do a bit of catechism as well. What the church obviously keep it in line with what the church teaches on certain scripture. And also there's Margaret Doran and Bridget Mungans. They started off a traveller prayer group in Apple Bay Horse Fair about 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. So it's the 10-year anniversary coming up this June. And they also go to Walsingham as well, so there's lots of travellers that goes there as well. So there's lots of things taken off for the travellers. And I usually try to get a prayer group going once a month in the Ladywell in Preston, just out the outskirts of Preston.
Another one, yeah.
So Declan and Siobhan, the families come a few times as well. We had it all summer, so it was very promising, thank God.
Do you ever do things further abroad? Obviously you've been to Rome now, but do you do things like, I don't know, Santiago de Compostela or Lourdes or
Never got the chance or opportunity yet.
Right.
We will be going to Ireland with the help of God next year.
That's good.
And we're going to go to Galway, the Ballinasloe Fair.
Yeah.
So
Another one.
we're going to bring it there as well and help other people, train them up in their whatever they need to know to spread the gospel among the travelling people and the gypsies.
You know, I'm absolutely amazed to listen to this because, you know, I mean, I have